"Heal me for $1 million," the billionaire laughed. But the words weren't a joke to the homeless boy who lifted his head from the pavement that night. Donovan Hale's voice echoed beneath the glow of the Manhattan skyline, bouncing off the expensive glass walls he'd spent his life hiding behind. He spoke with the casual arrogance of a man who had long stopped believing anyone could reach the part of him that had been broken for years. His suit alone cost more than the annual salary of most Americans. His wristwatch gleamed like a small sun. His reputation, fearless, ruthless, untouchable, preceded him everywhere he went. But tonight, something in his life had slipped just far enough off its axis that he found himself speaking to a homeless boy outside a hospital he had stormed out of minutes earlier. A hospital where specialists had told him the same thing they'd told him for months. "We don't know how to help you. Your condition is not physical. Your pain is psychological, emotional trauma, not illness." Donovan didn't believe in emotional trauma. He believed in contracts, empires, leverage, not feelings. And yet the pain in his chest had grown so severe lately, he could barely breathe at dawn. Billionaire or not, he felt hollow, unraveled, unhealed. He laughed his disbelief into the cold night air, but the homeless boy did not laugh. The boy stood slowly, his thin jacket slipping off one shoulder, revealing a body that had known years of struggle. His name, though Donovan didn't know it yet, was Micah Rowan, 16 years old and homeless for almost 18 months. People walked past him every day without noticing the way he watched them, studied them, understood them. He had lived invisibly so long that he had learned to read hearts, the way others read books. But Donovan didn't know that. What he knew was that a boy barely old enough to drive was staring at him with unsettling stillness, as if Donovan's laughter wasn't noise. It was a message. Micah stepped closer, the hospital lights catching the edges of his amber eyes. "I can heal you," he said quietly. Donovan's smirk faltered, not because he believed him, but because the boy's tone wasn't foolish, childish, or playful. It was certain. Micah's voice carried an odd warmth, like someone speaking from the inside of Donovan's pain, not the outside of it. And for the first time in months, Donovan's chest didn't tighten in resistance. It expanded, barely, but enough for him to notice. A chill slid up Donovan's spine. His head of security mason tensed instantly, stepping forward. "Sir, let's move. He's just a kid, probably unstable." But Donovan lifted a hand to silence him, because something about Micah felt familiar, uncomfortably familiar, even though Donovan had never seen him before. A flash of memory flickered in Donovan's mind. A boy with the same steady eyes, sitting beside him on a dock when Donovan was 11. A boy who had spoken about fear as though he understood it in others better than he understood it in himself. A boy Donovan had known for only one summer before life tore them apart. But memories were deceptive. Pain twisted recollection. Donovan pushed the image away. Micah held Donovan's gaze without flinching. "You said heal you for $1 million. He pointed toward Donovan's chest. "But this isn't about money. You're hurting somewhere too deep for doctors, too deep for anyone who sees only your power." Donovan's jaw tightened. People weren't supposed to see that. Not strangers, not children. He snapped, "What could a homeless boy possibly know about my life?" Micah didn't stagger back, didn't break eye contact. "Enough," he replied, "to know you're carrying the kind of wound that grows in silence, the kind that makes a man choke on his own victories." A strange silence stretched around them, swallowing the city noise. Donovan swallowed hard, caught off guard by a truth Micah shouldn't have been able to perceive. The boy had cracked open a part of him without touching him. "That pain you feel," Micah added softly, "didn't start recently. It started before you became a billionaire, before your empire, before your power. It started with someone you lost." Ice shot through Donovan's veins, because that was true, painfully true. A memory, one he had buried, flared behind his eyes. A little brother's laughter, a fall into a river, a scream swallowed by the current. Donovan had never forgiven himself for not holding on tighter. He had carried that loss like a ghost inside his ribs. No therapist, no doctor, no specialist had ever been able to reach it. But somehow, this homeless boy had touched it in seconds. Donovan stepped closer, voice low. "Who are you?" Micah looked up at him, his expression almost sorrowful. "Someone who understands broken people, because I'm broken too." There was a tremor in his voice, a weight that didn't belong on someone his age. Donovan recognized that weight instantly, the heaviness of guilt that had no home, no cure, and something inside Donovan cracked. For the first time in years, he whispered, "Show me." Micah nodded once, then "Follow me." And Donovan Hale, the billionaire the world feared, took his first step behind a homeless boy who somehow knew his deepest wound. Donovan Hale followed Micah through the dimly lit side street behind the hospital, his polished shoes clicking against uneven pavement as if they didn't belong in such a place. The billionaire moved with the tension of a man who'd stepped out of his familiar world of penthouses and power into a shadowed corridor where nothing obeyed his rules. His security detail trailed several steps behind, confused, agitated, and uncertain of why their boss was entertaining a homeless boy's claim that he could be healed. Micah walked ahead of Donovan with quiet purpose, weaving through alleys he seemed to know intimately. The boy didn't hurry, he simply led, as though he'd been expecting this moment long before it arrived. At the end of the street stood an abandoned bus shelter, its glass panels cracked and its bench rusted. This was where Micah stopped. He turned to Donovan and said softly, "Sit." Donovan's brow pulled tight. "You brought me here." Micah nodded. "This is where people come when they've been forgotten. I need you to remember what that feels like." Donovan froze. Forgotten. The word bruised a place inside him he had spent years pretending didn't exist. He thought of long boardrooms, luxury estates, roaring applause at investor conferences, all the places he was admired but never known, all the rooms where he was respected but never seen. "Sit," Micah repeated, not with force but with something deeper, gentle authority. Against all logic, Donovan obeyed. He lowered himself onto the cold metal bench. The moment he sat, a strange, prickling awareness crawled across his skin. Micah was watching him, not like the press did, not like shareholders did, but like someone studying a story written in bruises and decades of silence. Micah sat across from him on the opposite bench. "Tell me when the pain started." Donovan scoffed, leaning back. "You think this is therapy?" "No," Micah said. "Therapy listens to what you say. I listen to what you avoid." A muscle in Donovan's jaw tightened. Micah continued, "You weren't born with this pain. It grew in you. When did it begin?" Donovan's chest felt tight, as if answering meant peeling off armor he didn't know how to live without. "You wouldn't understand." Micah's voice softened. "Try me." For a moment, Donovan considered walking away, but something held him there, the boy's eyes steady and warm, reminding him of a truth he'd buried so deeply that speaking it felt impossible. And yet, the silence between them waited like open hands. "It started when I was 11, Donovan whispered. "My little brother, Aaron, he slipped into a river. I tried to grab him, but he was too far. I never saw him again." Micah inhaled sharply, not in shock, but in empathy so pure it rattled Donovan's composure. "You carry his last moment inside your ribs," Micah said, like it never stopped happening. Donovan looked away, blinking hard. "I built an empire to outrun that guilt, but the higher I climbed, the more it followed. Micah nodded slowly. Because you climbed alone. A strange pressure grew behind Donovan's eyes. He couldn't remember the last time someone had spoken to him this way. Unafraid, unfiltered, unbought. His closest associates treated him like a legend. Investors praised him like a miracle. But no one had spoken to him like a wounded man trying to breathe. Micah leaned forward. Now tell me about the pain you felt tonight. Donovan closed his eyes. The doctors said my chest tightness wasn't physical. They said I was drowning in unresolved trauma. I walked out because I don't believe in emotional weakness. Micah shook his head gently. Pain isn't weakness. It's memory trying to speak. For a long moment, Donovan said nothing. He could feel Micah's steady gaze settling around him, like a blanket of truth he didn't want to acknowledge. Then Micah said something that pierced deeper than anything so far. I know what it feels like to lose someone and believe it was your fault. Donovan looked up sharply. Micah's hands trembled where they rested on his knees. His voice thinned. My mother died 2 years ago. She got sick. We didn't have money for her medicine. I tried to work, to beg, to do something, but I failed. I was 15. I watched her slip away because I wasn't strong enough. Donovan stared at him, stunned. Micah, but the boy didn't let him offer comfort. I understand guilt so heavy, you forget what breathing feels like, Micah said. That's why I saw it in you tonight. You're carrying the same wound I am. That's why I said I could heal you. How? Donovan asked, his voice cracking open. How does a boy with nothing heal a man who spent his life drowning? Micah exhaled shakily. By showing you what you've forgotten, what power can't buy, what wealth can't erase, what pain can teach if you stop running from it. Then something unexpected happened. Micah reached out and gently placed his hand over Donovan's heart. Just his palm, warm, steady, grounding. Instantly, Donovan felt something shift inside him. A trembling like the moment before a dam cracks. Not magic, not fantasy, not a miracle. Something human, something ancient, something he had repressed so long it felt foreign. Your body remembers drowning, Micah whispered, but your brother didn't die because of you. Let go before it's too late. Donovan's breath hitched. A sob he hadn't made in 25 years clawed its way up his throat. Micah didn't speak again. He just kept his hand there, steady, as Donovan silently broke open in the cold night air. And for the first time since he was 11, Donovan Hale wept. But somewhere in that rawness, in that cracking open of old wounds, a strange light flickered, small, fragile, unfamiliar. Hope. The moment Donovan Hale's tears slipped into the cold air, the world seemed to slow, not dramatically, not loudly, but in a way that felt like something inside him had quietly surrendered. His breath stuttered, uneven and raw, the sound foreign to his own ears. He hadn't cried since the day Aaron died. Not once. Not when investors backstabbed him. Not when deals collapsed. Not even when his marriage ended in a silent battlefield of accusations and betrayal. His tears had become extinct. Until tonight. Micah didn't speak. He didn't wipe Donovan's face or recoil from the billionaire's unraveling. The boy simply let him cry. Let him release something calcified so deep that Donovan didn't even know it was still alive. When Donovan finally steadied his breath, Micah withdrew his hand with the delicate care of someone closing a wound rather than abandoning it. The air felt different, lighter somehow, though the heaviness in Donovan's chest hadn't disappeared. It had only shifted, reshaped itself into something with edges he could finally see. Micah waited, his amber eyes reflecting the faint shimmer of streetlights bouncing off puddles. That was the first step. Donovan wiped his face, embarrassed and yet strangely grateful. His voice was hoarse. How did you do that? How did you know exactly where the pain was? Micah hesitated, fingers twisting in the threadbare fabric of his jacket. Because I've lived in that same dark place. When you're drowning in guilt long enough, you start recognizing the sound of other people's silence. A gust of wind drifted through the alley, rustling a torn poster on the wall. Donovan studied the boy, his posture, his stillness, the way his face held both youth and exhaustion. There was something unusual about him, something that didn't fit the standard definition of homeless. He carried a strange wisdom, the kind that life gave out unfairly to those who suffered too young. Donovan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "What happened to you after your mother died?" Micah swallowed, gaze lowering. "I bounced around, shelters, abandoned buildings, parks. Some nights I slept under bus stops, like this one. Other nights I stayed awake because sleeping wasn't safe. I tried to find work, but nobody hires a 15-year-old without a home address." The boy's voice tightened before softening again. "And somewhere along the way, I learned that people don't really see you. They see your clothes, your dirt, your circumstances, not your heart." Donovan felt the words press against something tender in his chest. He understood more than he expected to. Wealth had hidden him in plain sight, but in a different way. People saw only the billionaire, never the man. "Why were you behind the hospital tonight?" Donovan asked quietly. Micah looked up, and in his eyes flickered a brief, painful truth. "I've been trying to save enough for a checkup." His fingers curled into fists. "I think something's wrong with me. Something serious." Fear flickered across his features, fear too old for someone so young. Donovan's stomach tightened. "What symptoms?" Micah hesitated. "Sometimes my vision blurs. Sometimes my hands shake so hard I can't hold on to anything. And sometimes I faint." A cold unease crept into Donovan's spine. "No one at the hospital has seen you?" Micah shook his head. "I've tried. They turn me away, unless I can pay, and I can't." The words struck Donovan harder than he expected. A hollow ache spread in his chest. Not the same wound Micah had touched earlier, but something new, urgent, protective. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Donovan asked. Micah shrugged. "Tonight wasn't about me. It was about you." But that answer unsettled Donovan even more. Micah had taken his pain seriously. Meanwhile, the boy had been walking around with tremors, fainting spells, blurred vision, alone, invisible, untreated. A tension grew in Donovan's jaw. "Micah, listen to me. You're going back to that hospital right now. I'll pay for everything." Micah blinked at him, stunned. Don't do that. It's too much." $1 million, Donovan said firmly, echoing his own foolish challenge from earlier. "Was a joke to me before. But you did what no specialist could do in months. You cracked something open. You helped me breathe again." He paused. His voice softened. "Let me do something real for you." Micah's lips trembled, not from weakness but from the shock of being offered help without condition. "Why would you do this for me?" "Because you saved me first," Donovan replied. "You reached a part of me I didn't even know how to reach." Micah swallowed hard, eyes glistening. "I didn't save you. I just showed you where the door was." "And now," Donovan said gently, "I'm showing you yours." Micah didn't move for several seconds. The boy looked torn, grateful yet afraid, hopeful yet convinced this moment wasn't meant for someone like him. Finally, he whispered, "What if it's too late? What if whatever's wrong with me can't be fixed?" Donovan stood slowly, offering his hand. "Then we face it together." For the first time, Micah looked at Donovan not as a billionaire or a stranger, but as someone who saw him, really saw him. After a hesitant breath, he placed his trembling hand in Donovan's palm. The billionaire's grip was steady. Micah's was fragile, but together they rose. As they stepped out of the alley, the night didn't feel as cold. Something in the darkness had shifted. two broken souls inching toward a healing neither of them fully understood yet. Donovan didn't know that in the next few hours, the truth about Micah would shake him more deeply than any trauma he'd ever carried. And Micah didn't know that Donovan's life was about to change in a way that would rewrite everything he believed about power, loyalty, pain, and destiny. But fate already knew. And it was waiting. The hospital's automatic doors slid open with a soft hiss as Donovan Hale guided Micah through the brightly lit lobby. The boy's hand trembled faintly in his grasp, not from fear this time, but from the raw unfamiliarity of being treated like someone whose life mattered. Nurses glanced up, their eyes widening the moment they recognized Donovan. Billionaires didn't walk into emergency rooms without an entourage or a press release. But tonight he wasn't here for publicity, nor for the hollow power of being noticed. He was here for Micah. "Get him admitted," Donovan said gently but firmly to the triage nurse. "Full diagnostic panel, neurological and cardiac, and I want the best specialist available." The nurse blinked. "Sir, typically—" Donovan slid his black titanium card across the counter. "There are no limits. Today, this kid is the most important patient in this building." Something in his voice softened the nurse's hesitation. Within seconds, she was coordinating transport, handing out wristbands, alerting the on-call physician. Micah stood stiffly, overwhelmed by the sudden attention. For months, he had been invisible, until tonight, when a man the world considered untouchable treated him with a tenderness no one else had offered since his mother died. A nurse pushed a wheelchair toward him. Micah froze. Donovan crouched in front of him. "It's just protocol," he said softly. "You're not weak. You're taking your first step toward an answer." Micah swallowed and nodded. As he sat, Donovan's chest tightened. Not with pain now, but with a strange protective instinct. He didn't understand. Something about Micah felt like unfinished destiny, like a thread pulled from the same tapestry of his past. Donovan followed the wheelchair to a private examination room. Machines hummed, cuffs tightened, electrodes were placed along Micah's temples and chest. Blood was drawn, his vitals were monitored. Throughout it all, the boy watched Donovan with quiet, wary gratitude. Donovan stayed beside him. He didn't sit, he didn't check his phone, he didn't pace, he simply stayed. When the tests were done, the doctor, a middle-aged neurologist with sharp eyes, asked Donovan to step aside. Micah's hands twisted nervously, and Donovan placed a reassuring palm on the boy's shoulder before following the doctor into the hall. "What's wrong with him?" Donovan asked immediately. The doctor exhaled. "We're still analyzing some results, but preliminarily, the boy is severely anemic. His blood pressure is dangerously low, and there are markers suggesting a possible autoimmune disorder." A cold chill spread through Donovan. "Is it treatable?" "Yes," the doctor said, "if we intervene soon. But without treatment, he would have collapsed within weeks, maybe days." Donovan closed his eyes briefly. Micah could have died. Alone. Unseen. Unhelped. "What do you need?" Donovan asked. "Admission for observation, further imaging, medication, and long-term follow-up." "Consider it done," Donovan said, voice firm. "Give him everything, the best, and put it under my account." The doctor nodded and stepped back into the room. Donovan stayed in the hallway for a moment, his hand still tingling from where it had rested on Micah's shoulder. He didn't understand why this boy had reached him in a way no one else had. Why he felt a connection that wasn't logical, wasn't explainable, wasn't part of any world he understood. Then he remembered something. The flicker of a memory from childhood. A summer by the river. A boy with amber eyes. It couldn't be. It made no sense. Micah was too young. Aaron had died at 8 years old, but the sensation, the unshakable familiarity, lingered like a haunting echo. Donovan re-entered the room. Micah looked up at him, his eyes shining with uncertainty. Is it bad? Donovan sat beside him. It's treatable, but you need care, real care, and you deserve it. Micah's lips trembled. I don't want to be a burden. You healed something in me tonight, Donovan said quietly. So let me heal something in you. Micah lowered his gaze. Why do you care so much? Donovan hesitated because the truth sounded insane even to him, but something pressed at the edges of his heart, urging him to speak. You remind me of someone I lost, Donovan whispered. Someone I've never stopped grieving. Micah's head lifted slowly. Donovan continued, voice soft, breaking, honest. My little brother, he had eyes like yours, a quiet spirit like yours, a way of seeing people, deeper than they saw themselves. Micah's expression shifted, surprise first, then something quieter, something aching. Donovan, he said gently, your brother's death wasn't your fault. Those words sliced open the most sacred wound inside Donovan's soul. He swallowed hard. How do you know that? Micah hesitated. His next words fell softly like a confession carried too long. Because if someone you lost loved you, truly loved you, his voice trembled, they wouldn't want you to carry their death forever. Donovan stared at him. The air thickened. Micah looked away, blinking fast. I wish someone had told me that when my mother died. And suddenly it clicked. Not literal recognition, not reincarnation, not fantasy, but resonance. Micah was not Aaron. Micah was what Aaron could have been. Kind, perceptive, gentle, healing. Micah was a reminder that the part of Donovan that died with his brother did not have to stay dead. Without thinking, Donovan reached for the boy's hand again. You're not alone anymore. Micah exhaled, shaky and slow. Neither are you. A nurse entered. We're ready to take him upstairs. As Micah was wheeled toward the elevator, he glanced back. Donovan? Yes? You never said it earlier, Micah whispered, but am I healed yet? Donovan stepped forward, brushing a hand against the boy's shoulder again. Not yet, he said gently, but now we both have a reason to try. The elevator doors closed, and in that quiet moment, Donovan Hale, billionaire, empire builder, man who once laughed at the idea of healing, stood alone in the hallway, transformed by a homeless boy who had done in minutes what billions of dollars never could. He had given him back his heart,